Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack, and today I'm here to talk about the Porsche 993, but specifically this Porsche 993. My friend Stuart had the really good fortune to pick it up for about 30k, I think just over that. Now I think that is an amazing price. Back in the day, there is no way this would have been advertised for anything less than probably 40,000. It's quite funny because I'm being followed by Stuart in my Alpha GTA and I can see that one of the lights is once again not working. Don't know what's going on with that. Anyway, I think he got a real bargain with this car. I had my own, I had a 964 and that's the car I've owned the longest. I think I had it for 12 years or something like that. I did a lot to that car. But I've got a soft spot for air-cooled 911s. However, 993s never really tickled my boat before. This is a 1996 993. They succeeded the 964s. There was a mild, I wouldn't call it a refresh, but there was a bit of a change halfway through in which they were updated for emissions and the engines had variorams put in. What the varioram is, it's an adjustable air intake that gives it more torque low down and a bit more up top. That was quite important because for emissions reasons, they were also forced to change the gearing on the 6-speed gearbox. This, being a later car with varioram, I think will most likely have the gearbox with the longer gearing, which is in some ways slightly less desirable, but the varioram will make up with it with the extra torque. When I first got into Porsches, I got into the poverty spec 964s, or what was then called the poverty spec 964s. Nobody wanted them at that time. They were supposed to be useless. They had what was reputed to be quite an unreliable engine package, and it was really the black sheep of the Porsche family, whereas these were held in extremely high regard by people. And that for me was really rather unappealing. The reason is that the 964 crowd, they were all willing to experiment, to improve the cars, to modify them, to work on them themselves, and it was really an exciting sort of group to be part of. Whereas in my experience at the time, certainly, 993 owners seemed to be more interested in talking about values and mileage and things of that kind. So I instinctively took a bit of a dislike on principle to the 993 for that reason. It's not I dislike the car. I just didn't really like the image. The thing is now, the roles have been completely reversed. And 993s are actually worth less than 964s. The reason is that 964s still have that 911 silhouette, whereas these kind of lost it. The 964 the last 911 to look like a 911. And back in the day when it was released, there were tales about engine reliability and other factors that meant that second-hand they weren't worth very much. But that did change. Now that these are underdogs, perversely, I really like them. This may have been the most advanced evolution of the air-cooled 911, but the 964 was the last 911 that actually looked like a 911, especially in profile. And I have to say that although it doesn't have the traditional 911 silhouette, I do think these are really, really pretty. If you look at the lines, look at these sort of the way that the wheel arches bulge, the way the back sort of wraps around in a certain way. I think they are really, really great looking cars. And the fact that in a way they have become the underdog, whereas before the 964 was the underdog, just makes it a much more appealing prospect for me, just because I think I tend to be a bit contrary. Another YouTuber, Nick Murray, has just bought a convertible and absolutely loves it. It's his favourite ever car.
Love that car. I just drive around in circles in it. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why it's so perfect for me. Really don't like convertibles, but yeah, I love that car. And so much so that I'm here in New Zealand looking at 993s instead of, like I was thinking of selling I've got an old BMW here and I'm, oh my God, I'm lost interest in that. I need to have a 993 here in New Zealand when I come and stay. So yeah, I've been, and now I just want to buy 993s in the US as well. Like having one is not enough.
So this particular C2 that Stuart has brought, fantastic colour, I think it's amethyst or something like that. it looks really, really nice. I've always thought 993s were really, really pretty. I love it. Not a huge fan of the turbo twists, to be quite honest. I do prefer different wheels on these, maybe Cup 1s, or did these come with Cup 1s? I think they came with, I can't remember what they're called, Cup 2s actually. So I would prefer it with Cup 2s. But generally speaking, it's a really pretty car in a pretty colour, and I love it. And the thing is, they do drive really, really well. People say that 911s, that 964s, sorry, feel more raw and more like a real 911 should do. And I can see what they mean. They are a bit more agricultural. Definitely, 993s are more refined. However, these do drive really, really incredibly well. I might go as far as to say that for me personally, a 993 really is the sweet spot in terms of 911 handling. Yes, it is a little bit more modern maybe than you would like sometimes, but that's not always an issue. There's enough feel and enough personality here to still keep you engaged, even though it is actually relatively civilized. So, how did Stuart get this car so cheaply for 30 grand, I think, or just over? I don't know is the answer to that. It's got 121,000 miles, which by the standards of sort of air-cooled 911s isn't actually that much. It's a coupe. It's a manual. It's a two-wheel drive. It's a C2. So really, I don't know. You got a really good deal, but I have seen quite a few of these about at good prices. And this one does drive really, really well. It's like a 964, but it's a little bit more balanced. I think it just helps having that back end riding a bit better. But all in all, really, a great little car, and for that money, surely you would be tempted to. I've had a look, there's a tiny, tiny bit of rust in the scuttle at the front, but nothing really to speak home about. It turns really well, it rides really well. I'm sort of going around in pretty much comfort. This one has the, is it MO90? I don't know, but it's the sports factory suspension that came with the car out of the box. So it's actually slightly stiffer than a normal one would be, which would suit me just fine. And you can feel that there is some stiffness there, but it's cushion stiffness. It's not that sort of jarring stuff, which Stuart will be knocked about in the GTA as we speak. So it's not like that. It's actually pretty good. So Stuart mentioned that the engine doesn't feel quite as pokey on this as he would like. And I kind of see where he's coming from it, but I'm not sure. I've not recently driven one of these with a Vario Ram. But actually, no. Maybe all it is that it's probably got the original flywheel and not a lightweight option. And maybe that's why it doesn't feel quite as responsive as I would like. Also, coming from the GTA and the Busso V6, I'm sorry, but every single time I've got into another car, the engine has just felt crap next to that Busso. It's unbeatable, absolutely unbeatable. But these are brilliant. The interior's really quite similar to the 964. Not a huge amount of change, different door cards, few little things here and there, but this is really the last of the real air-cooled 911s. It's a lot of fun on these roads, and you can just live with it a little better than a 964. And I'm not slamming 964s, I love them. But this is a really, really good car, and I am so enthusiastic about the fact that it was 30 grand. It's almost like classics are coming back to the era where they're going to be affordable again. Everything seems to be dropping a little bit. I know some people argue with that, but I think the evidence is definitely there. And I personally am delighted about that. It just means that it's going to give us more choice in the future on what to buy. So what's not to like? Yeah, the engine on this, it feels healthy, but it just could do with a tiny bit more pep, I think. Lancia Integrale 16 valve there. The gearbox is like sort of rifle sharp. These 6 speeds are the sweet spot, really. And although it's not the quickest steering system in the world, or the sharpest, it feels really natural, and it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost as if you get different kinds of feel. It's not always more or less feel, and the feel that you get from this is good feel. I think often you can have a lot of feel in a system, but it's polluted by stuff you don't particularly want to know. Whereas on these 911s, you get feel. It's not massively in your face, but you get feel, but it's all good feel. What I'm trying to say is interesting. You know, the right kind of feel. My God, what am I saying? Well, I've massively enjoyed it. Really glad to be back in one of these again. And who knows, maybe at some point, could it be that this could be an Influenzo replacement? I think if it was, you would all pretty much kill me. But at some point, I do have to, you know, I probably will have to replace the Influenzo, because especially when it's all running well and everything else, I'm not going to be able to do much in terms of, you know, videos, and I can't afford to keep it and buy another car. So on a separate note, please tell me, what do you think I should go for if I do sell and replace the Influenzo maybe next summer? The 993 is possible and in the running. It would be something that needs a bit of work, I think, that I need. But there would also be a Ferrari 355 is quite high on the list. I've always wanted one of those, but they're just a little bit too expensive for what I would want, which is ideally a manual coupe. I think I'm looking at sort of 70 really as a starting point. Just, I don't think I can afford that at the moment. So I don't know. But anyway, keep an eye open for any project cars or anything like that you see for me. Really appreciate that. I'm always on the lookout for anything interesting which is cheap. It's got to be cheap for what it is. But it can have maybe crash damage, or it can be a Cat C or D car. But anything that makes an interesting story for YouTube. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to Stuart. Thanks, buddy, for bringing this. I really enjoyed driving it, and on the whole, I think it feels like a really, really good car. Really like it. Have a happy New Year. Have a happy New Year, everybody. Please do follow me and on Instagram, and follow the channel. And I'll see you for the next video.